In the final weeks of World War II, as the Third Reich collapsed inward, the prevailing narrative is one of frantic, chaotic flight. But you know, the disappearance of the German gold reserve, hundreds of tons of it, wasn't chaos. It was actually a meticulously planned, high-stakes operation, executed by the same bureaucratic machinery that had engineered the war itself. The misconception persists that this treasure simply vanished into myth, just a footnote of buried Nazi loot. The reality is far more complex. The gold didn't just disappear. It was used as a final, desperate instrument of policy, a last-ditch effort to buy survival, sow confusion among the Allies, and ultimately to lay the groundwork for a post-war revival. Tracking its journey reveals not a fairy tale of hidden treasure, but a stark lesson in how institutions, even in their death throes, prioritize the preservation of power over everything else. The man in charge was Walter Funk, the Reichsbank president, a former economic journalist who had risen through the Nazi Party's ranks. By April of 1945, with Soviet forces encircling Berlin, Funk oversaw the loading of the bank's remaining assets. And we're not just talking about gold bars here. There were massive crates of foreign currency, millions in US dollars and British pounds, plus the private safety deposit box contents of, well, countless German citizens. The decision wasn't to destroy these assets, which, was often standard military doctrine to prevent capture. Instead, the decision was to move them. The initial convoy, a fleet of trucks and trains, headed south, away from the advancing Red Army and toward the Alps. This was a region the Nazis had long planned as their final redoubt. A significant portion of this treasure, 276 gold bars, sacks of foreign notes, and priceless art looted from museums, ended up not in a fortress, but in a salt mine in the town of Merkers. It was here, on April 7, 1945, that units of the U.S. Third Army made one of the most famous discoveries of the war, walking into a cavern containing what amounted to the largest cache of Nazi gold ever found. The discovery was sensational, a headline-grabbing moment that seemed to close the book on the Nazi treasure. But that was only half the story. A second, far more politically sensitive shipment had already been separated from the main convoy. This one, personally overseen by Funk's deputy, was sent deep into the Austrian Alps to the town of Bad Aussee. This was the heart of the so-called Alpine Fortress, a region the Allies feared would be the site of a protracted, fanatical last stand. The treasure that arrived here wasn't just the Reich's gold. It was a sophisticated slush fund, millions in Swiss francs, American dollars, and a staggering 65 million in gold Turkish lira. Currency that was untraceable and usable on the international market. The man guarding this cache was not a banker, but Ernst Kaltenbrunner, the head of the Reich Main Security Office, one of the most powerful and ruthless figures in the SS. This was the critical, overlooked decision. The Nazi leadership wasn't just hiding gold to keep it from the Allies. They were positioning it to be used as a bargaining chip, and more practically, as an escape fund for the SS cadres who would try to flee Europe. The gold in Bad Aussee was intended to purchase silence, secure false papers, and finance the post-war survival of the Nazi intelligence apparatus. The United States Army eventually discovered this cache as well, but the process was shrouded in secrecy and competition. Intelligence units, particularly the Counterintelligence Corps, were given priority access. The doctrine that emerged from this scramble was a precursor to the Cold War's so-called rat lines, the organized networks that helped former Nazi officials, scientists, and intelligence operatives escape justice. A portion of that gold, historians now argue, was quietly repurposed, its origin laundered by the very agencies tasked with finding it, in exchange for information on Soviet operations. Walter Funk, who had orchestrated the entire evacuation, stood trial at Nuremberg. He was sentenced to life in prison, a sentence that was later commuted due to ill health. The gold itself, however, became a point of contention for decades. The 65 million in Turkish gold, the untraceable fund, remained a subject of diplomatic dispute between the Allies, the new German government, and Jewish restitution organizations well into the 21st century. The story of the German gold train, then, isn't a puzzle to be solved for the sake of adventure. It's a case study in the durability of institutional logic. The same bureaucratic mindset that meticulously logged the confiscation of assets from millions of victims was, in its final act, employed to ensure those assets could serve the organization's future. It reminds us that the physical instruments of power, like gold, currency, and negotiable assets, often outlast the regimes that hoard them. They don't simply vanish. Instead, they are absorbed, repurposed, or become the subject of quiet, diplomatic battles that can last for generations. To understand conflict is not just to understand the battles, but to follow the ledger book. It's in those columns of credits and debits, hidden in salt mines and mountain lakes, where the true aftermath of war is often written. Subscribe to War Machiner and share this if you value history that goes deeper.